Hey, welcome, this is Jelle growing bonsai and I am so excited. This trident has been growing over this rock for the last couple of years. It is very windy, I hope you can hear me. As said, this trident has been growing over this rock for the last couple of years. I grew it from seed, planted it as a seedling on a rock, and now you can tell it is grown quite well. So I am going to take it out of the pot. I'm going to look at the roots, but before I go there, because that's only going to happen in a second in this video, but for me in a couple of weeks, I first need to tackle the problem. One of the problems that I have now with this tree is premature yellowing. Look at these leaves. They are pale, some of them are brown, and we are still in the second week of September, so it should still be green. I think this might have dried out because of a fairly small pot and a very long whip and a very hot summer. The alternative option is of course that this part is getting a lot more shade than the top, and the tree is just saying, you know what, I don't need all this. On top is way more important. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to ensure the tree realizes the top part is vulnerable. Take most of it off. And with that done, I can just pop it back in the spot where it sits normally. I hope that this makes sure that these lower branches stay alive. And that's important because this has grown very slowly. The slow growth means that it has very, very tight internodes. Later, when I cut it here, I therefore have a top that has the option to grow lots and lots of side branches. That will make for a much better bonsai than when I take something that has grown like this. Very long internodes. There can only be a bud here, or here, or here, and nothing in between. Yet on the same distance I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 nodes. Well, okay, maybe 8 nodes on the same length. This is much better for bonsai than that. I'm going to put it back in the sun and I'll see you in a second, in a couple of months. I'm a little bit late, but that is just because spring has started very, very quickly. We went from freezing 5, 6, 7 degrees Celsius to days of 20 Celsius, so that is, I need to think, 68 Fahrenheit within a week's time. So last week everything was frozen, this week everything is exploding. I don't know how it happened this quickly. Anyway, let's get this out of the pot. I'm going to replant it into this pot. This I want to get rid of. This is going to be my new leader. Might as well just take this off right now. This reduces the importance of this branch, and then later in spring I will cut this flush. But for now, let's get it out of the pot and let's see how good it has developed. Always a bit tricky. How do you hold it in a way that you don't lose the plant from the rock if it hasn't grasped properly? So I need to be gentle here. I'm actually holding the rock now, not the plant, because the rock is the heaviest part, I think. Wow. It very much looks like the roots have grown outside of this aluminium foil. I'm going to very gently open up this whole root ball. I don't think you need to see all of this. I'm just going to gently take this off, and once I'm getting to the point that is interesting, I'll come back with the camera. It might very well be that that is the time that all the roots have come off, because I see here all these roots, they are just, look, the roots haven't gone through, they have just grown up. Here and there's a little root coming through, but most of them just come from the bottom. This is all loose. This is really, really good news. That means that the roots will probably have a very good hold on the rock. And look at that, all the roots, I've not cut a single root. These are all connected at the bottom. And before I open this up, I'm now just going to remove this skirt, and then we'll see what we have on roots left over. But this is all from roots that come from the bottom of the pot. That is really, really good. Now I'm removing this because it's all weight, and the moment I move the rock, I can just pull off individual roots. By removing this weight, that risk is much less, and therefore any roots that are semi-attached will not come off. Very curious to see. I should get some water because I don't want all these roots to dry out. Look at that. This is a gorgeous root, but there's very nice side roots here along the rock surface too. So I'm just going to take this off, and I think I'll re-wrap it straight away with new aluminium foil. And I'm just going to give it another year in the pot before I really remove the foil. This is really, really good. Where are my scissors? This is all growing on the outside. Don't want to keep this. Might actually plant it a little bit higher, so maybe up to here, so that I can start enjoying the plant more. This is also the time to make small corrections like this one. This is a small root growing away from the rock. I don't want to keep that. This one similarly. But let me get some foil and wrap these roots up. It is very, very dry. I have been watering the rock so that these roots stay moist. I'm not going to do all this much on the base. I'm just going to leave this alone. I'm just going to re-wrap. Squeezing down tight to really enforce roots to follow the rock surface, right? Also it keeps in humidity, all sorts of beneficial stuff. Right, and back in the original pot, I would say. Now there was nothing wrong with the substrate, so I'm just reusing it. And I'm adding a layer so that the whole tree comes up a little bit in the pot, because I want a larger part of the tree to be visible. And now I just fill it up with substrate. And now it is really important, or I find it important, to really squeeze it in so that there's a pressure on the aluminium foil to really push all the roots against the rock and leave as little airspace as possible, so I really get a close connection. Even though this is already so connected, it won't come off anymore. So I'm going to take 1.5 millimeters of aluminium, slide it through here, and get it on this leader. Quite gently. I'm not putting a lot of pressure because this branch is going to fatten up a little bit over the season, and it's going to take a month or two before this gets in the region of being set. Just gently wiring it out, trying to not break off any buds. Now this I really want to go down fairly steep at the base. You notice that I'm keeping my finger here so I can't tear it out completely. I want it to come forward, move a little bit backwards, forward, so it really feels like a heavy branch. Like that. This section is going to be removed, but I don't want to do it now. I first want this to root back into the substrate, and once I get strong extensions, maybe in 4 to 6 weeks, that's when I'll cut this off and I'll make a very nice smooth transition, and within a season or two that should completely close over and be almost invisible. If it is too ugly, I can always still decide to use the tree like this. The roots are not all that nice on this side. That's why I've decided to start off with this side. Look at how nice this root here really fuses with the rock, and I have good hopes that this one will start doing this as well if it extends a little bit more. We're in the middle of May, time to look at making a nice smooth cut. You see the nice extending branches here. This is nice and strong on the top. Here at the bottom, I don't know what exactly it was, whether this was frost damage or a light fungal damage, but the leaves have curled up a little bit. I'll remove all those leaves. Then I'm going to unwire, thin out a little bit, because there's way too many branches here. This is really covered with new branches, and I just need one side branch in each node. So every side branch beyond the one I'm removing. So thin out 2 twos. So let's just start off by removing these leaves with the curled up edges. I'm leaving the growing tips in place so that it can regrow quite quickly on these areas. This could be fungal, could be wind, could even be a late frost. We have had some late frosts here. I am thinking it is a combination of the hot dry weather with bad watering. But in case it is fungal, I'm just removing these, and the tree will just have to start all over. And now with the foliage gone, you can see here that I am quite late in unwiring. Look at that. Already in these tight bands, it has started to the tree has started to swell around the wire. So high time that I remove these wires. Normally I'd say take a saw and make a nice slanted cut here that's nice and smooth. My saw isn't here at the moment and I don't feel like walking there. So let's just do it this way. The risk here doing these cuts is that the bark slips. So I'm doing it in multiple steps, and slowly I am teasing away this all the way to the point where I want to remove the trunk. If you remove the last sections just in very small snips, there's less risk of the bark breaking or slipping. Now, quite important to go quite close to the branch, yet at the same time you don't want the branch to snap off. But the closer you go to the branch, the smoother the transition will be. And I make it a little bit depressed, and at the edge I let it go down a little bit deeper, and then with a sharp knife I'm going to smoothen out these edges a little bit round, so that later on the bark can grow over this wound and it looks nice and smooth. Trident is a thin bark species, so it is always good to smoothen the bark as much as possible, so you don't have odd lumps or swellings later on. All set to go and grow for another couple of months. Let's see how this recovers. There's a few more of these curled up leaves that I'm just popping out. Let's see whether this just is because of the repotting and all the work done. Right, months have flown by and we're now in the middle of summer. It's August, and look at this. It is growing really well. In fact, it might be growing too well. So I'm going to prune it back a little bit. And where am I going to prune back? Well, here in top you see this branch. It is actually really heavy, and I don't want very heavy branches to develop in the top right now. So I'm going to remove this completely. Then this is starting to develop quickly, so I'm also going to prune that back a little bit. And the same for this one. It's getting quite heavy, so let's remove that. And go back to a little side branch. Yeah, why not? Actually, no. Keep the side branch, keep the young short internodes, and just go a little bit back. Then here I have a branch that comes probably towards the future front, but to be honest I don't know yet what the design will be. I also don't want this to get very heavy. And in a similar fashion I'm going to prune back a lot of these long whips that are just pushing and pushing. Just leave this one whip as a sacrifice, just to develop the base of this branch, which is really weak, ready to go back into the garden for another couple of months of growth. And this wound is really starting to heal over nicely. So in another 1 or 2 years this will have fully healed over. And I need to fertilize a little bit with either iron or nitrogen, because this is a clear sign that it is lacking either one of those, probably nitrogen. November, it's getting cold. Last moment to work on this tree for the season. Now this, I don't know why I left this on, because this is actually not connected to the top of the tree. This is a sacrifice coming all the way from down low. But maybe that was my intent, to allow this to grow fat and aid in fattening the lower trunk. I don't remember. To be honest, I would have to look back into the video and see what the reasoning was, but I'm not gonna. I'm just going to remove it, because I don't see the reason for it now, and I don't want any more big scars. Offer that back a little bit, just like that. This is a very long branch with long internodes. I don't really want it there, so that can go. This is too long, reduce it a little bit. This is a very nice low falling branch, but I don't want to keep all of it. Now let's just defoliate it, see the structure, look at the branches and see what we're going to keep for the rest of the tree, and maybe add a bit of wire. But it looks like the shape is already pretty reasonable. Look at how small these leaves are now already. And that is without really having ramification or having worked on it. This is promising to be a very, very nice tree later on. Now, of course, the question is, what was the front of the tree? And I think I said something like this, where you have the nice structure of the rock. You have these two big roots coming down. On this side, there are some smaller roots, but they don't look all that great. But there is, very nice here, a very young root that seems to have found its way down. But I don't think this is going to be the optimal viewing angle. I think this will be the most interesting side, and if that is the case, then this branch, which I pulled down a little bit, sits actually quite nice. This sits nicely. This should of course come down a little bit. This is still quite heavy, and I'm just going to prune back here to a little side branch, and I'll keep this completely, but I'll remove one of these little side branches. This is fairly heavy compared to that. Let me reduce that as well. Take this heavy branch out. I'll bring you in closer for a view here on the scar, because the scar is really starting to develop nicely. You see here, this is starting to become a very nice low scar thin bonsai. Now let's see what we can do here with a little bit of wire. This is just 1.5 millimeters of aluminium. I want it to come down and a little bit up and to the side. And also here, this one I want to come down and then back up, and actually put a little bit of movement so that the side branches are all located on an outward bend. And here I can use this to create a different layer. Look at this. And what you now see is I've created now here, this is the heaviest branch later on in the tree. Even though it's not the lowest, this is the lowest. But that makes sense because it's hanging down, and this is where really it's interesting that when you actually look at images from your camera, you'll see that branches are not actually positioned nicely. I'm hoping for some branches to occur here into the back, and maybe here as well in the back later on. But as I don't have them, I'm positioning these branches now to also point a little bit backward. It's early March. Actually, it's the middle of March. Time to get this into a different pot. Now I've selected this pot. It is quite large. It's also very rough on the outside, which might work well with the and the rough outside might work really well with the rock. But we'll see. Let's pull this out of the pot. Let's look at the roots, and let's see whether I can indeed put it into this container. It is still quite large. I will need to find a better pot, and maybe I'll have a pot made specifically for this tree. Well, taking this out of the pot is of course a little tricky. I will gently have to slide it out, hoping that the root ball doesn't disintegrate straight away. That looks like a healthy root ball. Now what you see quite clearly is that this is of course an area of the root ball where the roots could hardly get to, because the aluminium foil has forced all the roots from the top down in here. So this can just come off, and it should not have all that many roots. Here is where all the roots are from the whole tree. So I have to be a little bit gentle. I might actually just go in and cut everything off straight away before I remove the rest. This way I reduce the pressure that the roots will experience. Of course I want all the roots to stay with the rock, so I don't want a lot of weight on the roots as I'm repotting. This is a tricky one, but we'll see how it goes. Well, I guess I'll gently have to start unpacking. don't need all these circling roots, so I'm just going to cut through them, I suppose, to see whether I can gently get these roots off without pulling them off the rock. And on second thought, now that this is out of the pot, I have a much smaller pot that will also fit the tree. So I'm just going to gently slide the whole thing in here. First, of course, put a bit of substrate at the bottom. And do not much more than that. In the end, this first needs to get established. It needs to settle in. And only then will I do more root work. This is all quite delicate. I am not sure that it is all going to live. I think I will lose quite a few of the smaller roots, but that will depend a little bit on the weather. I might actually put a mesh around it so the birds don't get at the roots. As I didn't clean out the roots, there's no real need to do any major work on getting the substrate between the roots. Actually, instead of mesh, I still have a bit of aluminium foil. I'll just wrap that around, because it also will keep it a little bit humid. So, not completely unwrapped yet, but the start is there. And then over summer I can just at some point completely remove the wrap once I feel that it has done its job. Getting closer. But I think this is it for now for this video, and I will start a new video at some point on this one. This was Jelle, growing bonsai. Keep doing that and see you next time.